Should we get rid of Philip's character and replace him with Theo Sharp from season 2 as Eloise's main love interest? No. No, we shouldn't. Number 1, they are going to change Philip's character from the books. I know a lot of people have a lot of gripes with Philip in the books because he is neglectful, because he is such a horrible person at the start of the books. I would argue every single one of the men suck in the books, and they have changed every single one of them so far. That will be the same for Philip. They are going to change his character. It is an incredibly compelling story, however, for Eloise, and so I am excited to see it. I also think they will give Eloise more agency in her own book, because again, that is what they've done for all of the women. So, of course they will give her more agency. They've already set up this character to be so independent and so incredible in the show. Of course they're going to follow that through, otherwise it wouldn't be a satisfying narrative. Speaking of satisfying narratives, that would not happen if Eloise ends up with Theo. Theo was a character who was introduced in season 2 of Bridgerton to be kind of a love interest for Eloise. He is kind of her first crush, her first infatuation with a man, the first person she really felt kind of understood her actual goals and desires and ambitions. Full credit to Theo there. It was great to see Eloise finally get to engage in something that she believed in and that kind of fueled her passions a bit more. However, by the end of the storyline, we understand why they can't work. Eloise hates society. She hates that she is born into the ton. She hates that she has to follow all of these rules and that she has to live within the society in order to have a fulfilling life. However, she is also incredibly aware that it benefits her. Eloise does not like the society that she's in, but she is also not willing to leave it. And there is a very understandable reason for this. It is because, like was described in Benedict's season, he would not be able to interact with her family anymore. She would have to say goodbye, borderline permanently, to a lot of people who adore her and support her and who she genuinely loves and loves spending time with. It is by no means fair, and I'm not saying that it's fair. I am saying that that is the society that they live in. That is the world that Bridgerton has chosen to portray. And there are certain rules within this world that can't just be broken for the sake of a seemingly happy ending. There is an element of realism within story writing that you have to adhere to. You can't just pretend that everything will be fine and dandy in every sort of way when you have created these functional rules within this world. More than anything, I don't think, personally, that Theo and Eloise actually liked each other. I felt like they were infatuated with what the other person represented. Eloise was, for Theo, the first kind of upper class lady who seemed to really take an interest in feminism, in these more rebel movements. He hadn't really seen that before, that we know of. He hadn't really been exposed to that. And you have this prim and proper woman saying, yes, this is exactly what I believe in, I want to help you. It became kind of novel to him. And he liked being able to teach her. He liked being able to introduce her to this world. And I think a part of him really did like her. But again, I feel it was more of kind of the confusion with the infatuation. And then we have Theo, and I think that Theo was more of a symbol for Eloise. He represented everything that she could never truly have. He was the leader, borderline leader of a cause that she truly believed in, that she wanted to be a part of. He had a level of freedom that she didn't, while also being restricted within society in his own way, in a way that she would never understand. And I think there is a world where Eloise would want to understand this, but at that stage in her life, she didn't. Because they have that whole argument at the end, where Theo essentially tells her, go back to your proper world, go back to your upper class standing, and Eloise accepts this in a way. She is hurt and upset, but she understands that they aren't able to be together, that there is a kind of wall between them that she isn't able to breach. If Eloise were to marry Theo, she would lose all of her status, and that is not the same the other way around, which is why Benedict marrying Sophie is how it can have a happy ending, because Benedict keeps the Bridgerton name, Sophie becomes a Bridgerton. They essentially would kind of live in scandal, and that's what they do in the books. They go off to the cottage, but they don't lose that kind of actual social standing. They just are kind of ostracized a little bit. Eloise would. Part of the reason she is so opposed to the idea of marriage is because she doesn't want to become a man's property, which is completely understandable. And in this case, she would be Theo's property, which is, again, not great, but it puts her at a significantly lower social level than she ever was before. This is not a life that I think she is actually willing to live. And this is not a bad take on her character. It's just that I think that she understands, without really acknowledging it, the level of privilege that she has been born into. And that is not something that she she willingly wants to give up for an infatuation. Could they bring Theo back and make it the greatest love story ever told? Sure, but Eloise would still be losing way more than she would ever gain. And there's so much class dissection that you would have to go through throughout the whole season to make it work, to make us understand why these two characters would be able to make their relationship last without resenting each other. Eloise should not have to give up her family for love, but they might have to in this case. They can't fake Theo being a lord like they did with Sophie. Theo is known in the lower levels of society. He is the leader of a rebel movement. He is not a quiet maid who is tucked away and is genuinely the illegitimate child of a lord. Eloise would have to accept a reality where she doesn't get to see her family as much as she would ever want to or ever be used to, where she would be living at a lower class than she ever had, and where she was still, at the end of the day, a man's property. And a lot of people said that they could bring Theo back and Eloise could go to university. That doesn't track. If Theo and Eloise get together and Eloise loses her social standing, there is no way that she is going to be accepted into university. The only way that she could possibly even make the story work is on the slightest chance that an upper class lady would even be considered, because that was all they were even considering, was the upper echelon of women, and most of them didn't get in. 99% of them. It was like a couple here and there. There isn't a storyline that works within the world that Bridgerton has created where Eloise gets to study and pursue her passions at a university if she is with Theo. It doesn't work. I think that he was brilliant at introducing Eloise into the actual issues of lower class people, and I think that could play really well into her book with Philip, because she is introduced to a new world that is like adjacent to society, and because she is introduced to more of the servant staff and how they suffer and how their lives are, and I think that really kind of plays into what she needs to go through in order to have a satisfying ending. But I think Theo was just the catalyst for that. I don't see him being the end game. Obviously, people are free to disagree. Art is very subjective. All of this is up to interpretation. None of us know what is going to happen. We are not Jess Bramwell. We are not Shonda Rhimes. We are not Claudia Jessie. We are not whoever the actor of Theo is. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, so fight in the comments. Rip me apart. Don't do that. I'm delicate. Anyway, let me know what you think.